button is separate from streaming. Why? I don't know. But here we are. I'm just checking the audio as it comes out of YouTube, and we'll see where we're at. So as you can see, I'm running builds. That's what you see on the screen today, right now. I'm building 2126, not 213 yet. Although you have a few betas to choose from, I would wait till, like these builds don't have the fixed time motion turned on or any of that yet. But I want to do that for the 213 builds. So what I'm going to do is, after this is all done, I'm going to set it up to do that. There we go. There we go. Okay. Looks like YouTube is playing great. So, and the audio isn't bad. I may just keep it on the microphone because it's dependable. My other stuff is wireless and rechargeables, so it has to be both charged and within range, and like no interference, otherwise things go haywire. So we don't need this right now. But yeah, I'm just doing the builds, and what happens is that the builds go into here, and also I am streaming, so, and building, so if it seems like it's choppy or anything, although it looked like it was coming out on YouTube just fine. M1 baby, M1 Ultra. I've got the cores all blasting away. Let's check the activity monitor and see what's happening with the CPU. Oh sure, the Windows server is definitely up there with more than one core. OBS is eating up a core, close to a core anyway, and yeah, so it's all running pretty good though. I also have MD Worker because I changed my spotlight settings so that I could do some searching, and I should probably just set them back. But either way, so activity monitor is looking good. Let's quit that, so we don't need it necessarily right now. It uses up some time. So yeah, hidden changes will be committed. I know. So it's pretty cool that we have this little filter on GitHub desktop now. That's nice. So yeah, nothing too exciting to report. Since the last time I was working on 213 beta, we've been fixing a lot of stuff with the fixed time motion, and like all I can say is it's improved in its speed and its techniques. It's using a lot of fixed point math now, and that alone makes it faster. But if I bring it up, let's see, file through the source here. Boop, it's a module, and it's part of, let's see, I guess we'll just call it a feature maybe. We stick it in here. Oh wait, I'm looking at 2126. I can't bring up 213 right now while this is building. I can, but I can't. I have to keep that open. So yeah, it's using my Marlin install as the base for this build. So without we don't need to necessarily look at all the ugly code, but I can tell you is that it's just it's smoother. It's really smooth. It like moves much more, like it almost feels like a servo controller is how I keep describing it. Which, I guess if you've used, I actually haven't gotten too close to a Bamboo like A1 or one of those, but I imagine your old bed slingers are going to feel a little more like those, like an A1. And you'll have to use an ARM board. You'll need something that's like, pretty speedy. I don't know if 50 megahertz is quick enough. 100 megahertz is better. 200 is even better than that. I think the fastest board I have is 240 megahertz, and that's speedy enough. And you basically want to run at the clock speed of the fixed time motion as quickly as you can. One thing I can do is bring up the code in GitHub, so let's just do it there. I've also been working on the website. I actually have a new design that I hope to show you guys a little bit. Well, it's not like a new design. It's like ripping out the old design and just starting a new and completely fresh from nothing. So it's kind of boring, but if I go to the documentation and switch to new theme, and hopefully doesn't break too bad because I actually have this running. Oh yeah, it loves it. And if I reload from the top, you can see it's, obviously it needs a reload. Oh man, where'd all the CSS go? Poor thing. What is going on? Oh, I think I just need to start from fresh. mfdoc. That usually does the trick. And there it is. Okay, that's better. So yeah, you can see it's basically very plain. It's very plain. But the idea is that the stuff that you were seeing, like on the left side, all bunched up and like it's just too much there. The page navigation would be on the right, and then if you narrow the screen, it comes in to the middle instead, and then that'll all be collapsible. You don't have to look at it. You can just read the page, and then we're gonna make these more readable and just a little more imagery and stuff like that, more diagrams, of course, all that kind of thing, just to make it friendlier. And in general, less noisy, which, the original site or the previous or the current design of Marlin FW it's fine, but it's a little on the dated side. It's good to have like the wide layout and larger text, so I may be modifying this in that regard, but in general, yeah, there's probably some copying of like the Clipper and other sites that just use, essentially this is a Jekyll layout and it's a pretty plain one, but there's ways to set this up where I can have maybe have it do language translations more cleanly and other things. We'll see. I don't know what it's going to take, but right now it's all just filler, and some of this is like, I think I might have one page. Yeah, there's nothing really that's filled in yet with real content. Like maybe the download page, So yeah, so as this gets filled out, it'll be more straightforward to use. Like this is, compared to the current download page, who doesn't love purple? I do, of course, and it's cool, but it kind of, it is a bit on the tall side and it goes off the screen. The important things are at the top, of course, but I don't know, something about just having a bit more clean. But, well, we'll see. Maybe we'll have an option to like use the old or new theme or something. I don't know. But this is, as you can see, just the docs. And again, this is not fixed yet. This is one I'm just trying because it's supposed to be pretty plain and it's easy to build on. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's fun. But 2126, I have already marked the release and the sources are posted, but they're going to change a little over the next day as I tweak and repost, move the tag. Sorry, I like to move the tag, but I haven't announced it yet, so it doesn't really count. But I guess it does. But I'll get it sorted out. But it's basically all I'm tweaking is the build scripts for what I'm building now. So it's not like anything vital will be changing for your experience. It'll be the same build that you got yesterday and tomorrow. So don't worry about that. Just to keep things clean, and so that's pretty cool. New theme will be fun. I can't wait to do more on that. The configurations, the one big change I made in this version of the configuration, and I'm not going to move these. Can't change tags while I'm working on this. Have to let it go. I don't know what this is supposed to be. Try Gorilla. AVR. Leave that one out. In case it gets there. So where are we at? Oh, right now the builds we're at 844 changed files. Pretty good. That's about halfway through, I think. Close. I think there's a total of 1,500 and 1,409, so we're more than halfway through. Cool. We're getting there. Let's take a look at the builds. So I get a lot of successes. Oh, and then I keep a log, and that's the error log. So they started here, and I had more errors before because I was trying to build some things that I wanted to skip. This time I think I'm skipping most of those. So right now that's already at Creality CR20, which is I think way down here. Oh wait, no, here they are. I get the sense I started over at some point here, but I'm not going to edit this file either because it's also being modified as we look at it. It's being added to. So we'll just let this go, but that's the ones that have failed. And so once this has gone through the whole process, I will look at what each of these failed on. And if there are some that I can just fix easily, I'll fix them and rebuild them, and we'll get them going. But in general, there aren't that many. I don't know. But I turn it into a little script like this that it just rebuilds them, one of them. And then this time I'm going to be using no xfer, which will skip ones that were xfers by mistake. But that's a new flag I just added, so it skips the ones that would be uploadable, which you don't really want to build anyway. Those are built specifically for upload at the time that you build them, so they're not really useful to have in the archive or in the uploads. So that's why I'm leaving them out. Hopefully that takes care of everything. And yeah, that's the process. Doing all this. I've been trying to get a little help along the way from some AI to do some scripting, which has been useful. I don't always remember how to do like arrays in Bash. And then also along the way, I've been playing with AI a bit in scripting. So that's the other thing I've been working on too. The next thing I wanted to do is get the language translations running through a loop and handing them off to, some AI to do this stuff. And so I've been playing with this AI talk script, which I've been building. And essentially, its job is its mainly was to set it up with a microphone so I could talk to it and have it talk back. And so I got that much done. And then I also was like, well, and now I need commands and stuff. So I put commands in. And so it does like, I think it's in converse, yeah. So it has all these commands it recognizes, like, yeah, like these. Speech on, speech off, stop listening, text mode, switch to typing. I don't know, just all the things you could say. One thing I can do with this is also, which was kind of a fun thing to add. It was like, okay, well, now I'm just doing a chat back and forth with an AI, but if I leave out, like, at any point you can just start a new chat or do a side chat or whatever, and just use the same AI you're talking to. So I just decided to do it that way. I'm talking with GPT OSS 20B mostly. So I'm using that one, and as I do so, it's like, let's see, we'll get to this part down here. Look, so after it figures out those aren't commands, and it lets you, and that you're not loading something, loading an old conversation, it does this part where it says converse with the llama. So this is the part where it gets the reply. So it takes the prompt you gave it, adds it to the conversation, sends the whole thing off, and then gets the reply back. And if the reply has any length to it, it then does this thing where it says, oh, is this the first reply to the conversation? If so, I'm going to call this thing called set conversation title and generate title. So generate title is the function that does a little side chat and says, here's a new prompt, provide an emoji, etc., etc., and it calls assistant chat, which still includes the system prompt, which I might leave out, or have a different system prompt. Like you'd have assistant chat, and then you would have like side chat or tool chat or something like that. So this is basically how you build tools. This is the effective thing. You tell it, do this, provide an emoji and a short phrase to use as the title for this conversation. Put a space between the emoji and the title. Include nothing else in your reply. And if it's a good doobie, a good LLM, and in this case, GPT-OSS is very obedient. It does that correctly. It just replies with this with the new title, and then I take just that reply, and I make it the, I return it. And so and I strip out any extra spaces or whatever that might be in there. So yeah, pretty cool. And then that returns a title, and then that is now the title of the conversation from that point forward. And it also renames the conversation file and stuff. So pretty cool. And it's been working pretty well. I've been having fun with it. It keeps a log of all the conversations, and you know, they're all in JSON format, but in general, they're pretty readable. And I can always say replay, and it'll just spit out what we conversed about. So yeah, added a few commands like that. So been pretty fun just using LLM as a side tool in scripting, and using it as a tool for itself to create. You could have it rate its own conversation or start another side assistant and say, you know, take any part of it. I'm also capturing the thinking, which is now a new thing that keeps showing up. A lot of these models have a thinking or thought or think like blob, and then I really don't know what to do with it. I don't replay it. I don't really show it, but I'm keeping it, and I guess the AI sees it when I tell it, hey, here's the previous conversation. Now give it a title. Like it could look at the thinking to decide what to call it to. Um, but if I leave that out, which I may actually be leaving it out in the saving the conversation, but it is no, it's probably there because I'm saving the whole blob. I'm like, oh yeah, just take this blob and save it. I think I had an issue when I updated to the latest Olama. They changed the API a little bit, so I had to change the way I was gathering it and saving it. So, but it's really straightforward to do this stuff now. Like, if you're using Python, of course, the other thing I wanted to do was have it speak, and that there's different text to speech options. But what I found was when I used text to speech from the script, it would like block while it was speaking, and I was like, well, I can't type anything while it's speaking, so I need to background it. So I tried using a well, first I tried using a thread with threading, and that didn't really work because each time I tried to start the the process of saying, or the TT, the text to speech, it was like, well, that's already running, or the thread is already running. So, but I think the idea was that you would have the thread running, and each time you wanted to call it and have it say something, it would like run in a loop. It would say, oh, have I said this yet? But the thing is, like, it would just say things like, I think what it would end up doing is just um, piling one after the other, and I wanted to kind of have it interruptible as well. So ended up doing just a background process using say, which is on the Mac you have that built in, but you might not on your system, but for this it was perfectly fine to just do that because I'm just doing this for my own stuff. So on my Mac it's got say. On your system you might have something else, and I'm just sending the text over and having it say it. The one thing I am doing is sanitizing the text, and I'm like removing any code and replacing it with like my awesome code. And so it doesn't say it doesn't speak the entire code if you ask it to generate Python or whatever. It'll skip that part, but it does speak everything else. And so I also told the in the system prompt, the one I gave it at the top, I said I tell it specifically your output will be spoken, so don't output tables, and don't use narrative descriptions. Like for better pausing, use a colon instead of a dash. I found that dashes didn't work. So I could do some search and replace and stuff on the text, but it's a hassle. So why not have the LLM just generate it for you? This one being pretty obedient, I was pleased to see that it mostly does the right thing. So pretty cool. And I think I don't know if I have one open at the moment, but I can open it. Well, I guess open this and see how it runs. But yeah, I've been having fun with that. And then I also did a thing where because some of these terminals like Ghosty and others, Kitty, I think is another name of a terminal possibly. They use these different protocols to display images, and so it was like, well, I should have it talk to Comfy UI and generate an image and put it in line, and then I could specify, very quickly like which model I want to use or which, workflow I want to use right from the command line rather than having to load it in Comfy UI and, deal with the UI and everything. Sometimes it's nicer to just, get it sorted out in Comfy UI the way you like it and then add some adjustable parameters and just stick those into a script. And so that's what I ended up doing for that stuff. I don't know if I have it here. Of course, I was also playing with Zork, and I think I might have shown that in the last stream as well. But we have plenty of time because there's builds going. Oh, that one seemed to have failed. Which one? Right. Sometimes building for the 1280 or sometimes even the 640 doesn't fit. So we try, but if it doesn't fit, we just carry on and ignore it. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing with those, I think. But anyway, let me open up a terminal here. Boop. Hello. And we'll run conda activate talk and talk, please. And we can turn on the verbose stuff if we want. See all the messages it outputs. And I noticed some things took a little time, so I put in little messages so I'd know what it was waiting for. And it's loading the LLM, which is going to slow down. It's probably going to slow down OBS. Right, so I have it come up with a synonym for, also I gave it a command which is just rephrase, and I'm like, well, okay, pass this to the LLM where it just gives it one phrase and says, hey, rephrase this, and then it rephrases it and passes that back as a single statement. And it works great. So I'm going to continue to play with using LLMs as tools for sure. It's really cool to be able to just say, hey, here's some text, translate it into Chinese or Japanese or, whatever language you need, French and Turkish, whatever, we've got them all. So I have all these language files that are sort of incomplete, and so I'm really hoping to fill them in, at least as spreadsheets as a starting point, and then I can import those. Here we are, continuing. I'm having coffee today. You can tell I need it. All right. So yeah, basically having a little fun with this, and I have one prompt that I'm like, try to pretend you're the Star Trek computer. And it does a fair job, but I don't have the right Majel Barrett voice or whatever I need, so oh well. So I just say, tell me about the relationship between dragonflies and mosquitoes. Yeah, and that's pretty cool. If I have it listen, I don't know if it'll take over the microphone or what happens there. But I can say listen and it'll take over the microphone. And right now you can't hear it, but it's speaking.
Submerged in ponds, streams, and marshes where mosquito larvae also thrive, equipped with a suction thirding mouth.
So I can just tell it stop, and it'll just stop. So that just kills the background process that's doing the speaking. Very simple. So I like that. Being able to do that is great. So yeah, it's pretty neat. I can talk to it. It can talk back. We can have conversations. I need to have it speak a little faster and do some other tricks. I don't know how to get it exactly to do that, but there's probably, if I say, man say, you're goodbye. Say will probably tell me what to do. Yeah, we have a voice, we have a rate. There we go, rate in words per minute. So that's pretty good. So what's a good word per minute rate? I'm not sure. Let's try using it. Let's see. What other things do we have we could try? Well, I'll just use the default voice first, but rate, I know you can output a file. That's neat. That could be useful. I may try using that for my chats sometimes. Pretty neat. And then progress bar during synthesis. So that's pretty neat. So it also does a progress bar. Wow. Very neat. Okay, so yeah, voice rate. Well, let's just try rate and progress. Say rate 100. Oops. Say. This one will be the best. And I think you have to do the text last, maybe. Progress. Yeah, okay. So it shows progress, but it doesn't have like a big wide progress bar or anything like that. I don't know why it's not. I don't know why it shows it that way. That's weird. But it's cute. All right, neat. But yeah, that's. I think I'd have it speak a little faster. Let's go for 200 words. Yeah, go for that. Change the script a little. So yeah, speak with TTS. It does work, but it does wait. And getting it to work and not wait, figure out how that all works. And maybe I don't have to run and wait. Maybe I run and wait beforehand instead. And then it'll only wait if it's already speaking. I don't know. You could try something like that. But for now, say is great. So let's do, and we'll just say -r, say 200. There we go. Cool. So yeah, it's pretty neat. And of course, if the LLM's already loaded, then it doesn't have to worry about loading it again. Tell me, oh, and I can also say like load, and that gives me this list, and then I can say, oh, let's load 51. And replay, there's replay, and then tell me more. So you can continue the conversation. So this is a little quicker than, often than using your some of your interfaces.
In the early stages,
On it goes. Stop. So yeah, on it goes, but yeah, it's there. But yeah, pretty cool to be able to just do this and just, not worry about it. We have this display in columns. I have space for it. There's a way to do that. But yeah, each thing is that I'm messing around with is building on what came before us. This is really fun. Right, and it's always saving the conversation so I can, I can leave and come back later and continue to pick up where I left off. So pretty neat. And everything is kept as it were private, so you can talk about whatever is on your mind and it doesn't matter. You can be like, my alcoholism is starting to really affect my work. People will be like, may not want to make that kind of stuff public, but you can talk to your private AI about it all day. So yeah, 2126 is up there for download. Yes, you can get it. We can browse the configs. Boom, there they are. these are actually settled. The one change I did make to these, I was going to mention, was I uppercased all the PID settings that were the last holdouts of things that weren't completely uppercased. So yeah, and then I put it, an underscore in there and everything. So yeah, you have to rename a few things to get your old configs to work, but otherwise it's pretty close to 2125. Just has that one change. The main reason I made it is because it's also in 213, and it's one of the more annoying changes, so you might as well get it over with and rip the bandage off now. Rip the bandage off and get it done. Let's see what else we have. How's the builds going? Take a look. Still going. I believe we are about, we've got 400 to go, so we are 60, 70% through. I don't know exactly. But we're well along the way. Go, let's call it 1,000 out of 1,400. That is 71%, say. Pretty cool. So very excited. It's going well. Now there is a way I was going to set up this panel on here to do chat, but I can't quite get it working. So what I'm going to do is I'll just bring it up on YouTube Live, and we'll see if I can't see the chat. Oh look, Poco3468 is here. Always good to see you, Poco. So yeah, we're chilling today, keeping it real, keeping it simple, keeping it plain. Oh, there you are. Hey, what do you know? I have the chat working. I do see you. Just didn't have it in the right place to see it. I have this live control panel, which I never used, and I'm not sure how to use it, because when I try, it doesn't let me log in. Like it's a separate little browser or whatever. But when I click on it, it complete sign in using your passkey. That's what it does. It says use your passkey, but then it doesn't actually do my passkey. The main reason is I can enter my password. Let's see if that works. If I bring up passwords app, I'm gonna not let you, can't see it. No, you're not allowed. Ooh, is this my live account? Well, either way, I think it's this. Also, it's like such a randomly chosen password. What, I can't paste it? Are you serious? Serious? Type it out? What? Wrong password? Let's try another one. Oh wait, it's coming up with my passcode thingy somewhere. Oh, is this the chat window? What's going on? It has a passkey on it. This setup code thing, I don't really want to do that. My first time using these new password, the newfangled password tools. I'll just type it in. think that's right. Yep. Yeah. All right, did I get it right? Looks like it. Yep. Oh, chat. Hey. Things are coming up. Live chat, control panel. I got 0 XPs. Do I get more XPs? So this is fun. I'll be Thinky Head Software for this session. Moderation, help everyone feel safe. Cool. All right, there we go. There's a live control panel. Never seen this before. Happy Christmas, yo. All right, and a chat panel. I don't think I need much of that. There, we can just put that there because I'm not going to use those buttons anyway. Not going to hit the stop streaming button until we definitely need to stop. All right, so builds are still going, as you can see. We're all the way up to JG Aurora, so we're up to the J's. And I don't think there's, I think most of the builds are before J. I could be wrong, but we're up to 1124 of what's going to be maybe 1400 of them. Guess I can amend this commit anytime. There you go, 2 more. While we were waiting, several more came. All right, cool. So when was this done? At 1:14. So we started around 1:14 with these. 1:15, 1:16, and then we went all the way up to, I don't know where we're at now, JG Aurora at this point. Very cool. So that's right about here. So where are we at? The 23rd. So that's not today yet. That's not today yet. That's one. There's one. So yeah, we've got all the way up to here. So that means we've just got this many to go. So if we look at the position of the scroll bar, I take that as our percentage. That's pretty close to the bottom. We're doing pretty well. So yeah, that's pretty cool. 29 seconds each, and then we just have to go back and again look at the ones that failed and figure out why. The ones that are Mega 1280, I mean, I'm going to skip most of those. But I don't have them marked carefully as to which environments are which in the error log. The error log is just, all it shows me is the number. So yeah, I could fix that up a bit. It's just more convenient to pass the number around between these scripts when they're talking to each other. And, but making them human readable, no, doesn't hurt. But at the time I was doing, let's see, I was building this out from scripts that were kind of like already made to be interacted with differently. So yeah. But yeah, we're at a good point with this now. Build example does all these things. And it does say don't use this directly unless you give it a flag that says, hey, I'm using this directly, damn it. So I might just get rid of that at some point. But then there's usage. Let's see, what else does this thing do? Nothing too fancy. It adds some things to get rid of warnings. It may still be outputting some warnings, so remind me to add to that when we get around to it. Most of the, some of the errors are a little weird, like this one here. What's that all about? I don't know. So yeah, each one I have to investigate carefully. Ones that say assembler messages are probably spurious errors. Which one is this? I'm keeping notes. I'm keeping very careful, detailed notes as to what failed and why. I think I already did this one. Nope, other one. Assembler choked. Yeah, I think we just have to have an assembler choked section here, because there's too many to name. The assembler chokes occasionally. Assembler anchor assembler choke. It's basically a race, some kind of race condition. I don't know where it's coming from, but it always exists, and you just do a rebuild and it works fine. Like, you just have to do it another time. So if I go looking for assembler messages here, I will find more. So here's another one that failed. I think I might have put that in the list. Oh, I gotta make note of the number as well. Let's see, that's 2. That's the one we were looking for. Yeah. And this one is... Oh, it looks like they both failed, maybe. Look at you, 1 and 2. Okay. That's a rare event, I think. Or is it? We're gonna find it's like all of them or something. Then the BQB1 SKR2, number 3 apparently failed in the same way. So yeah, these will be easy to fix. The assembler choke is just rebuild. And then, oh, the BQBX number 1. For some reason, just having the worst of luck with BQ today. Let's see what else. And is that going back to the top, or no? We're still going. Crowd ECR10 mini number 3. Yep, that's that one again. So cool. Then this one, number 8. Wow, I didn't know we had that many. Sometimes. But yeah, it's good to know. Good to know. And this one, Meeb 3DP. Yeah, so good to keep these notes while we're doing this. So yeah, I was gonna bring up the browser and give you a little bit of an insight or a look at this new motion system and what's involved, because it works differently from the old one. And I guess, probably you don't even know much about the old one if you're like me. I don't know much about it until I have to, and then I look it up and then I know. But it's hopefully we'll get a bet once we get this new site up with its pretty new layout. I want to do a nice write-up about again, I'm totally stealing all the best things from Clipper's website. Is like they have a good write-up about how their motion system works and all the ins and outs. So I want to write up some of that for our system, and for my own reference as much as anything, just to be able to say here, oh yeah, what part are we in now? Oh right, this is the stage where it does this, and we know the stages, what order they go in, and all that. I've been meaning to do more flowcharts and things. Like, it'd be nice if our code base was such that it could just be like run through a filter and generate a big old flowchart, but it's not quite that simple, and there's a lot of things that may or may not actually even happen depending on what features are enabled. But in general, in the motion system, we built it originally out of Gerbil, which is a just-in-time style motion system. So we can go and take a peek at it. Here's the latest code, and here's where the motion system lives, is in the source folder, in the module folder, and there's now an FT motion and a stepper folder in there, in addition to a file called motion. header to go with it. And all the motion is encapsulated here, and very close to the way it was originally with Gerbil, where we have a position expressed in steps, stepper steps, and each stepper is a particular count. And everything that we do in motion is relative at that stage. We're just saying, oh, go this many steps and accelerate from this speed to this speed, or go at this rate starting out. And by the time you're done, we use a smaller delay. So we're just basically specifying delays between stepping events, and we use the fastest axis as kind of our basis for the speed, and then the other axes just follow from speed that we set for that. And it all works in really well, and you can impose some S-curve on that and do some other tricks. And then we have extrusion separated in its own process, so it can do linear advance or pressure advance, which is essentially starting a little early and stopping a little early in the motion path, so that you get pressure buildup and pressure release at appropriate times. Yeah, we're not going to get this browser to do nice things today. Let's see, but you can see that the code is not like easy to follow by any stretch, and it's very hierarchical, and there are a lot of moving parts to it. This is just the header describing motion, but there's a lot of things, like we have blocking moves in there. We have, at this level, you're basically planning like, a linear move, and it might get segmented and might get leveled, and all kinds of other things happen. And then it ends up at this layer called the planner, and that follows right here. And the planner has if we go to the header, you can see that we've got a block up here, which is, we've got this thing called block flag. So there's certain types of blocks, and then the block itself is this big long struct here, or there's the block flags itself, which are expressed as bits. And then some more other things, there's a laser part, and then, okay, we finally get two planar blocks. So here's the block itself, and it has things like entry speed, exit speed, and we have the numbers squared, all pre-ready to go. And some other things are all set up in the block, pre-calculated to make it faster. And then, there's cases where some things are constant, depending on your features, and then some things may or may not be there depending on features. Is there a color? It matters if you have a mixer. But if you don't have a mixer, then there's no color, which is a mixing, thing, RGB or CMYK or whatever you might want to call it. And then you have your accelerations and all that times. So this block is used at all levels of the planner now, and it's still used even today with the fixed time motion. It's just that this goes through an additional process where it is converted into just plain step and direction events that are laid out in time in like a buffer that just is regularly attacked. And so basically what you have is a simpler process happens at the ISR level, but you do more pre-processing in the main loop. So that's kind of where the new system overtakes this system in being able to do things like pre-time, where the steps are going to follow, we're going to fall in time, and have that all set up in advance before you send it out. And previously we had some we have a system now where it's ZV input shaping. It uses a buffer where it's storing time intervals and making new steps based on that buffer. And so you have to have a buffer that's big enough to hold a period of time and all the steps in that period of time. So the faster your vibration is, the better, the smaller your buffers are, basically. So it's pretty interesting approach, but it works even on AVR, which is pretty cool. So that's part of the standard motion system even. But the new motion system has like more advanced ability to lay things out in time, so it can do, way more fancy math on the steps and decide, how to compensate for noise and harmonics of noise and third stage harmonics. They can do all these other things with trajectories, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's a powerful, powerful little system, and it's all built without breaking the existing one, which was pretty impressive. Um, and it also, well, if you go to the current FT motion system, like we haven't really gotten into the weeds with this one, like all you can see is, yeah, there's lots of variables for sure. There's lots of functions for sure. There's things that happen. The main thing is that the main function in the planner is the segment ones, where it's adding a segment. And what's that one called? Buffer segment. So you have buffer steps, which, and we've got these nicely described. Buffer steps and populate a block and buffer a sync block and buffer a proper segment of a line. And yeah, sync blocks are cool because they set the time, they set a position at a particular time without having to wait for it move to finish where previously we had to wait for the move to finish. Now it's got a sync block that can set positions as it's going, which is good. That was one of my fun additions, since we already had some type of block that was a sync block. I think at some point, so it was like, well, might as well add more kinds, and doesn't really add overhead because it's like, oh, don't either do nothing or start looking at it once you know it's a sync block. So pretty cool. And then buffer align does a little more. It adds a linear movement, translated to delta scara, and this is like not say I think it's segmented before it gets there. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. And then we have things where we translate millimeters to steps and steps to millimeters and other things you would expect with this kind of motion system, where it's really fundamentally about steps, and that the millimeters is really more of a guide. Like, yeah, we want you to go there, where, go to the nearest step to this millimeter is basically what you're telling it when you give it millimeter commands. Or inch commands by that measure. And then we have other things like, the fact that it's a circular buffer, so we have to deal with, looking and seeing if it's full and stuff. So pretty neat. And then we have FT motion. I promised to look at that. So we're just looking at the header, and as you can see, well, we'll look at these on the side. They're a little easier to digest as opposed to the full source, but we can see it gets a little more fancy. It's got things like zeta and stuff, which you don't have to think much about when you're doing regular motion. But when we're doing FT motion, we got all kinds of things happening. Let's go back there. Let's get back there, and we see we have trajectories. We have again, different way of checking if the axis is moving. We have things like resetting. We use a thing called a stepping. So there's a shaping and a stepping and a smoothing, and there's a resonance generator, and there's trajectory generators. I want to say what's the word? Polynomial. I don't know why I have a hard time saying that today. Polynomial trajectory. So yeah, you've got polynomial trajectories, which again, when you hear them, when you do the moves with the trajectories, either like trapezoidal, which is the standard kind, where it just has initial speed, nominal speed, and it's very simple. Get distance at time, get to, this kind of thing. And when you look at the poly 6, same idea, get distance at time, but here it's generating that distance a little differently. So, and it's using these kinds of numbers to generate the intervals between moves and so on. So that's what they're kind of mostly about, is generating the intervals. So pretty cool. And then there's smoothing, which does some cool things to make everything smoother without necessarily losing like your corners, which is very nice. So, and then we have a shaping bit now, which is very pretty. But yeah, if you dig into the code of this stuff, it's very straightforward, I would say. I can see there's a lot of stuff that is fixed time motion, which gets a little weird, but you get past that, you get past the other things that are weird in Marlin generally, and you find that you have a pretty neat and readable set of things going on in fixed time motion. And at the same time, it's it's very grassroots, it doesn't feel like something that was done academically per se. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you look at code and you're like, oh, this is all very neat and clean, and I would be afraid to touch it. Whereas we're a little on the messy side. So it's more about getting things expressed cleanly. We try not to be too crazy with being pedantic, but we also we have certain guidelines. We're using a lot of floats now and avoiding doubles with some of our build options, which has made the firmware a little smaller, at least for 2.1.3. I don't know what you're going to get out of 2.1.2.6 here. But yeah, a lot of the optimizations that we're getting out of fixed time motion have been like worked out. We've gone through many iterations, and a lot of it has been figuring out the fixed time motion approach to get certain things to happen, and then also reducing the buffer sizes as well. Like if you compare, say, last month's fixed time motion to this month's, or maybe go back 2 months and look at the differences before it got more of the fixed time motion treatment, or the fixed time. I should say the I keep mixing up my terms. Fixed point. Once it gets the fixed point number treatment, you can really tell you can see the difference in the code. You can see that it's more component based, more modular, and you can kind of see that it fits together without losing performance, which is nice, and it's fairly well constructed. We did some weird things here and there to like figure out how many frame ticks to do and things like that per depending on your processor speed. Hopefully we'll have some of that worked out better. Like you want to have you basically want to pick some, like we wanted to automate it, like basically pick the best speed for your particular processor, and you don't have to think about it. But it seems like with some you might, because they don't necessarily use a clock speed that is matching up really well with the processor speed. I don't know. There's some things we might have to do there, but in general, once you get the number of ticks worked out per event and so on, you end up with a really nice, fast, and super smooth motion system. The settings at this point have been whittled down a little bit. So if we go to FT motion, we'll just go down there. Oop, here we are. So here's FT motion. You can see we now have an option to make it the default, which could be good. If you are using, I found in my testing initially, and I haven't tested the very latest, but I was having issues with sensorless homing, having to set different thresholds, and they weren't always reliable. I think it's better now, and I think one of the tricks I used was I turned on the poly 5 or poly 6 trajectory, and that was a good choice. It just, because I was already using S-curve motion with the other motion system, with the standard motion, so I think that was closer, and it gave a more closer approximation. But I don't know, these sensorless homing thresholds, you would think it would be like, oh, you're either not hitting something or you're hitting something, and it would be like, when you're doing normal motion, maybe the number that it reads would be 10, and then when you bumped into something, it would be 60. So it'd be a big boundary when you are and aren't, so you wouldn't get all these false positives. But in practice, when you're doing a starts and stops, you do get some false positives just because there's some torque involved in starting quickly or stopping quickly. So you have to have either low acceleration, and you already are using, typically with sensorless homing, you also want to use low speeds, like 20 millimeters per second is typical. So that's not hugely fast already. So, and you also want to use low acceleration. So I don't know if we have a specific setting for homing acceleration, but we probably should now. It's one of the things that's probably long oversight, but in general, you can always say, just before you home, set the acceleration really low, and then afterwards set it back to normal. Meanwhile, you have a motion menu, so that's an option. You gotta probably want that on if you're going to be using this. We now have an option to turn off standard motion completely, in which case it's going to be the default motion for sure. So yeah, that's a pretty cool one. That just saves a lot of space. Again, it's early days. I don't know if you can run everything completely in fixed time motion. I think so. I feel like you can, but I've had weird bugs here and there but I think that in the most recent iteration, most of those have been ironed out. I'm going to do some testing in the next day or two. And I'm aiming to get 2.13 out to you guys. These builds take a while. And setting things up and getting the release all together with everything, that all the pieces, sometimes takes a little while, but I do want to get this out, and I know there are a few bugs still, and I can't fix absolutely everything and delay the release more and more. So we'll put out a 2.131 not too long after this release, and that will hopefully satisfy folks. I don't expect there's anyone champing at the bit for this. Demanding, no one's going to be breaking down my door demanding that we get this darn thing out. But for some of the folks, the contributors, they certainly deserve their day to be recognized. And they've been doing a lot of great work. David Huesas and other contributors, Narno2202, whose full name I don't know offhand. I know them all by their handles, and they're just, you'll see their names in the commit logs. Have been doing some amazing work and producing a much improved core motion system, which is the one thing we really needed the most with Marlin, to keep it relevant and to keep up with the other guys in the field. The other thing I really want to get working on, and I haven't spent enough time on, but I've done a little tweaking, is the UI. I made a bed leveling menu specific to just bed leveling and probing, so that hopefully helps you find those more easily. Some of the motion system, we have an FT motion menu is also, and that could move up maybe next to the motion menu and be more accessible. So in general, it's easy to move menus around with the source code. I don't expect everyone to dive in and do that, but we'll figure out better places for things in upcoming releases. The next one is going to be, I don't know, Marlin 3, I don't know, or 2.2 maybe. And we might want to just call it 3 because I want to bring in, I want to start using the standard template library and really use modern C++ features as much as possible, at least C++ 17 if possible. I think we're kind of stuck on 14 at this point, which is a real bummer. But you get what you get. And I think we can get most STL, like the stuff that is free, like your data structures and things that are pre-allocated and stuff, fixed size arrays and so on. I think we can get a lot of that stuff in there, and we can use other features of STL and improve on our make the code a little more modern and sort of replace some of the things that are currently require macros wrapping them or doing other tricks. I don't think we're going to get rid of pre-processing entirely, and it's not like templates are a panacea either. If you're used to C++, like templates aren't pretty. They're not, but sometimes they're prettier than macros. So if you know what I mean, like right here we have, if enabled. We're going to continue to do that for the configs and so on because it gives us an organizational piece. One of the things that we now have, which I don't know if I've shown you guys, is if we go to the configs for 213, we'll just go from there. Or actually, better to go to the builds. We'll go to the builds. Builds, yeah. So, yeah, we'll go to this. So one of the things you can see is we have a config.h with each build. And this is a minimal configuration. It doesn't have everything in it. It just has the things that were enabled and nothing else. So it's stripped down, and you can see it's like, instead of whatever we have 10,000 lines or something ridiculous, it's 360 lines. So just what you need. It's organized based on the section markers that we put in the config. So as those change, the ones that this exports with number 105, config export 105 is what this uses. Excuse me. And the sections will update based on that. And so there'll be other things that will change. This is now uppercase and so on. So yeah, but pretty cool. And so the cool thing is, yeah, you only have what you need, and then you can ignore everything else. If you have custom pins or whatever, they'll go in here too. And this works if you drop a config.h file in Marlin 213, it'll build using that instead of the other configs. It'll ignore those. So this basically replaces them, and it's nice when you need it, And if you like it, give it a thumbs up. Tell your friends. So that's a pretty cool thing. This also, if you look at the configs for the builds for 2125, you'll see that we didn't have that option with this. So instead, you got a config.ini file in its place, which is similar. As you can see, it's the same idea. Zoom up. There you go. You can see it's the same idea, except it's in ini format, and so it's more familiar if you're used to seeing your Clipper style configurations. This follows that, and so rather than having this file be read by, say, a Python script and then applied to the way that the printer behaves on the host side, these options are applied to the configuration files before the build, and they just make modifications. So what's interesting about these is that these are easier to upgrade in a way, because like if something, I just have to change the name in here and then I run it, and it makes an upgrade to the new config file wherever the options may happen to be, and even if they move between files. So that's pretty neat. So I'm kind of looking at this as, yeah, and then you have this thing, use config, and then it has little section names. So this is kind of neat. And then, what is the config version? 20205 in this case. And I'm doing them for 2126. Let's hope that they actually have that in there as well. Yep, they do. Good. Just had to make sure everything's correct. So yeah, we're doing a pretty good job here. How are we doing? 293 at this point of, however many I had left. Yeah, where are we at? Let's take a look. We're way up to 2 trees, Sapphire Pro. So we're already into the T's? Wow, that was quick. So yeah, like I said, it goes from LM. And it's not like there's a lot of OPQRS, Soval, T, a lot of T. We'll have a lot of T's. So yeah, there's a lot of things getting built here. This is cool. So automating these processes has been so helpful. It's like previously, I don't know how I would have done these builds. Uh, now we have this MarlinBuilds, which is good. It gets at least the configurations that are standard out, so you can try them out on your machine. One of the things I really do want to do is, have like something like if it's got a BL Touch option, we should just enable it, but make it so that when there is no BL Touch attached to your printer, then it just ignores that and doesn't try to like do anything with it. Or it'll be like a flag, or you could turn it on. You could say, "Oh, I do have a BL Touch now. Let's turn it on," and then it would appear in the UI. And at least that way, that would be one thing that we would do, one less thing where we have to have two builds for everything. You just have one build with the option that you turn it on later, and maybe it automatically turn on when it saw that there was a BL Touch attached, and automatically turn off when there isn't one, and do it that way. But again, it's part of what we'll do going forward. Again, Marlin 3, not only is STL going to be one of the big things, but also making sure that we use more standardized APIs around a lot of the stuff we're doing. Like right now, we have the ability to edit an option, and it has like a range that's allowed. Like you can't set it lower than this value or higher than that value. And we have that number has to be enforced in the G code, and it has to be enforced in the menu item that might edit that thing. And maybe it has to be enforced when we load from EEPROM to check that the value is sane. And then we also have to have like a default value so that when you go reset to the factory defaults, it has a value to reset. And then we have a report value, like how do we report it? What is the value named? So we're outputting the value in to serial with some kind of title on it, or and then it has a parameter associated with it, like M25P or whatever. So all these things like about a given value are scattered around in the code, and instead of having them in one place where the value is defined as being it's editable and it's part of a setting that gets saved, and here's its range, and and then we have it in a little group, and that group has maybe an identifier on it that's like a 4-letter identifier. And so yeah, all those kinds of things that originally when was built, the EEPROM was built with kind of this very small amount of storage in mind and not too many parameters. And now we have a good number, and it's kind of inconvenient when you like always have to reset the EEPROM when you could keep parts of it and only reset the parts that changed. So hoping to build an EEPROM structure that is like IFF, which is the interchange file format, familiar to Amiga users and others. But the idea there is it's just like it has a little identifier on it, it has a size, and it has a version number or other things that can identify it. And when you don't recognize it, you just skip over it. And when you do recognize it, you read that information, and then you call the thing that applies it. So it'd be like, oh, I recognize you. You're the information for the filament change function. And so I'll, read you, and I'll pass you on, and your information will be stored to the filament change, like based on your version, whatever. I'll call filament change and say, hey, you read this, and it'll read it, and it'll decide, oh, version is old, but I can upgrade the values, multiply by 2, and store it over here instead, whatever. And then when we go to store it, we'll store the new block, but for now it's fine because we know how to translate the old one. Things like that, where every feature would know how to deal with it, instead of having one settings thing now, which is how we do it. So yeah, that's some interesting stuff. So what else do we have here? I don't forget, I'm going through this. So yeah, the ability to have no standard motion. And then one of the things we had was when you're using standard motion, if fixed time wasn't doing well with homing and probing, you could have it temporarily turn itself off for that. So that's there for until it becomes more evident that it's very reliable and you can trust it for everything. So that's cool. And then you have dynamic frequency mode, which is like as you get higher, the frequency of your machine might change. So we have the ability to adjust to that or not. If you don't need it, turn it off. And then we have different shapers, like, so you, again, to free up space, you can just turn off the 2 HEI and 3 HEI if you don't ever plan to use them. Basically, it'll be based on whatever tuning device you have. So if you have some kind of device that is attached to your phone or your computer by USB or whatever, you will use that and input the values to whatever shaper it accommodates. Hopefully, Yolendo, who made the original version of this new motion system, the shapers are all fairly the same and should be tunable in the same way. So they effectively just give them a frequency, and then you can do other things to set them, like the zeta and these numbers, which I don't know. I don't touch them, but once you have a tuning device that can tell you what to put in here, that's what you'll do. But in general, you can turn on your shapers, and then you have the option to use Z and E shaping as well. These are kind of new. You don't generally shape the Z axis because it doesn't move that much. So why would you shape it? So, but if you need it, you need it. You know, maybe you do for the type of machine you've built. Like maybe it's a foam cutter or something. You want it to have smoother motion. You can do that. Then there's E-shaping, which is needed to help with the smoothing and the synchronization. So generally speaking, it's good to have on if you're doing shaping of the other axes. And in general, like, again, we're going to try to come up with sane defaults for all the configurations, but initially I'm just going to go turn on FT motion as an option, and maybe turn on FT home and probe as an initial thing just for the first build. And then I'll run all the builds with this on, and then if they work, great. Or maybe the way I'll do it is I'll run it with it on, and or with it off. I'll run it with it off first, do all the builds, because it's cleaner to do it that way, and then I'll turn it on for all the builds, and then builds that fail, I ignore. Don't worry about it. The ones that succeed, great. And now you have the option to use it, and it'll be turned off by default. So it won't be like on by default in every config. It'll just be some of them, and then I'll keep the ones that worked. All the successful builds will just I'll update the config to stay that way, and then and then you'll have FT motion. So I just need to get it out there and get it in front of people, because I think once you try it, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, we'll get a report. We'll find out what we need to do to fix it and make it better. But yeah, you do have a resonance test. So this is one of the things you can enable. And I think, geez, I don't know if I put in a G code that goes with it. But there is an option from the menu to run a resonance test. And when you run the resonance test, you will get, let's look and see what there is a G code. I'll have to put that in there. It should have been in the notes. It should have been in there already, but where are you? Oh, it's in the newer firmware, so I can't check it right now. I'll check it later. I'll check it in the G code file. Gcode.h. Yes, there's a whole G code section. So yeah, M495 and M496. So I'll have to make a note of that. Yeah, axis smoothing, look how simple that is. It's hard to believe stuff like this can be so simple. But once you have a system that is like broken down into smaller steps and you're dealing with simplified units, stuff like this becomes much easier. I know I want to remove that extra space. It's bugging me. It's fine. So now we have, there's your axis smoothing. Look how simple it is. How does it work? It's magic as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, this is all very, since this is so tightly integrated with like the way that the motion system works, it's like rebuilding this for Marlin 3 is not going to be a straightforward process. Let's say that much. It's going to be like if say I decided, oh, I'm going to make each axis into a class, and then everything about that axis is going to be wrapped up in this one big old class. I would still have to keep everything in the structure it's in now, but just like make references or something. I feel like it would just be like a convenience wrapper until we got it worked out to be more modernized or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like any modernization I do is going to be like, it's going to run into like, oh, we did it this way. Now we have to like, we can't just rip it apart. I would like to, see parts of it kind of like, again, when I talk about modernization, it's more about style in a way. Like where can we use, for example, in our core stuff, we have types, and types is like one of the files that I feel like just makes me feel like I don't understand C++ because it's so much. There's so much going on with like, okay, I did all these macros at the start to like deal with laying out a certain number of elements that are only going to exist when you have certain axes enabled and so on. And then all those types are defined based using the macros to expand like them. So give an example. I guess I could lapse some of these. We have class like struct flags, class bit proxy inside there. We have, okay, so we have axis enum, so that just gives you some constants based on the axes that'll be there, so we can name them. And then we have little loops. And as we go down, I'm getting to the meat of the thing. So now we have these types, which are they're forward declared. So these are going to be our templated structs that do the magic with each type of axis. And even though it's called XYZ, it actually is XYZ IJKUVW. If those axes are there, XY is actually just XY. And then XYZ is XYZ IJKUVW and E if you happen to have that. So, and then for each type, so all the primitive types. And these are just containers of arrays for these things, but then they let you do things like all the things you'd want to do, reset them, set all elements to the same value, add them or shift them or do whatever. A lot of operators and stuff on them. So it's basically just, making some types to hold some numbers, and then as you can see, XY just has X and Y, and then the XYZ one has, these get expanded out to whatever you happen to have. So you can enable and disable stuff. And doing this with a template like beyond this, like, is a little tricky. Like this is how you would. I feel like this is this is kind of how you do it. But when you have things that need to be compiled down to only have a certain number of things and no more, and you don't just have like, well, we'll compile in the axes, but we'll never use them. It's like, for this type of application, you want to get it as small as you can. And so you just leave out the parts you don't need. And so building classes that are like that have only the elements you want and not the ones you don't, that have names, not just indexes by, number or whatever. Yeah, it gets a little tricky. So, how do you provide names for them? I suppose there's a way you can say like operator q, and the dot q would just be like an element inside of the class. Like there's just things about C++ that would be cool to have, like that you could just add on things but not add them on when you don't need them. Anyway, so you get a lot of weird stuff that we had to do, like, oh well, when you set if it doesn't have a u-axis, well, you're not going to have a thing to set. You already have one that sets everything at the start, so you have to deal with setting less than everything, and then you deal with like how many of those setters do you need, and you need as many setters as there are, one less than there are elements or whatever. So it gets weird. Anyway, as you can see, this is XYZ UVW, but not W, just V. So it's all the elements up to V because it has a W axis. So how would I do this otherwise? I don't know. I mean, there are ways you could probably do it with like little ellipses and stuff, but this is how we end up doing it. So I don't know. Just makes you feel like you don't know C++ when you see stuff, when you find yourself doing stuff like this. Like, am I just abusing the language? Is the language abusing me? Who's abusing who here? But overall, the whole point is to have convenience throughout the rest of the code. So when we use these arrays and stuff, we can move them around all at once and say, oh, here's the whole position. Boom. One element, one thing. And so that was the whole idea. Before, we were doing a lot with it was very C-like, so every time we used XYZ, we were passing around X, Y, and Z. And yeah, it got really stupid. So I had to make these, had to add them in. One of the many refactors that came through. But yeah, as I'm looking forward, the next phase, will macros be as, will crazy macros be as much a part of the equation? Because these things you've seen them. You've seen C++, you've seen C macros, you've seen how they work. They look like something you'd want to string on your Christmas tree because they're all colorful and Baroque and interesting looking and sparkly, but they're also like completely crazy. And when you get an error that is emitted within one of these like macros, it's ugly. It just throws all this stuff at you that you don't want to see, and there's no real way to filter it because you don't have like a filter on your output from your compiler that rips this stuff out. Be nice to have that, but you can see like here's a repeat macro. This is one of the ones that makes you crazy. If you actually understand it, you don't understand it. But the idea is that it has to have, you can have a macro named repeat, but if you want to have it call itself, you have to have it make a copy of itself with a different name, and then you can refer to this thing, but you can't have it refer to itself. Clearly, because it doesn't exist, right? Or something like that. So, and then you can use this thing defer to prevent this from being evaluated until later down the line by some number of steps. And how many steps are we talking in expansion land? I don't know. Then they talk about using coloring, color them blue, color them red. All kinds of weird stuff happens in macro preprocessing. I don't know if the compiler explorer will show you that kind of stuff, but it would be neat if it could give you some insight into what how macros are being expanded like through each step, because you know that like for every time you expand a macro that has a macro in it, the thing in the macro is supposed to is that going to get expanded first? What's going to happen? Are the things, and then if something already is like, yeah, it gets weird. The other thing with macros is like, yeah, if you have something that's already got a name that you try to reuse, it doesn't always give you the clearest errors. Or if you try to use something that's like combine this with that, you want to use a shorthand. Like one of the things I ran into was board underscore ESP32 is like, oh, I have a macro that I can use to identify boards, things starting with board underscore, and I just put it in there. But there was a thing called ESP32, so when it went to expand it, it was like, oh, board underscore 1. It was like, oh, it expanded because it was already, somebody named it in some header somewhere. So, or even as a compile flag or whatever. So I couldn't use that as the name of a board, or if I do use that as the name of a board, I can't use the macro to look at it or look for it So very fun stuff. Anyway, the more fun stuff is really this motion system. I highly encourage you to check it out and look at the way that FT Motion does its trick, because it has, as you can see, not a whole lot of elements or methods, and yet it does a lot of magical things. So it has a loop that runs in the main loop, basically, and if it's not active, it just returns. Otherwise, it does like various fancy things. It checks resonance to fill the stepper plan buffer. If it checks, see if it's running a resonance test. And then if it's not, it does all this other stuff. It fills the stepper plan buffer and then sets a busy status. And voila. All right, pretty cool. So it's basically just setting up the planner buffer and keeping it full. And it does that as frequently as possible so that the buffer never starves. And then we have, and the bigger the buffer, you would imagine, the more time you can wait in between. So it's more forgiving. Then you have the shaping parameters. It's like one of the things that's just for updating stuff. And then same with these setters, and there's a resetter, and there's a discarder that just sets a flag and or does whatever, discards the current planner block, releases it. And then you have some run out stuff going on for running things out. Yep, which is number of samples. Yeah, it's reckoning things in terms of samples. And then it has a thing called a generator. And then it has a trajectory, part of the generator stuff. And then here's our generators: trapezoidal, poly 5, poly 6. Boom. They have pointers, and those are just called according to which one is set. And that's that. And then get the name for the UI, and then plan the next block. So here it is: load, convert block data from the planner to fixed time variables. And so, yeah, this gets fun. So it does the whole thing where it sets it all up to do the block, which will happen a little later, as opposed to the standard motion system. When we get a block, it's like right in between the step at the end of one block and the step at the end of the start of the beginning of the next block. There's a little block fetch that happens right at that point in time. With this, we don't have that exactly. We get the block stuff, we put it into the buffer, and then the place where one block ends and another block ends is not really distinguished anywhere in that later down the line buffer. So that's one of the challenges I have now, is to figure out better ways to check end stops and motion, like make sure it's moving the right direction and so on, at this very moment, so that they're checked at the right time and in the right way. Either way, one of the things is that with any given, when you're doing steps, they're constantly being on, like, just the fact that there is a step or not a step doesn't mean that the axis isn't moving. Like, the axis, I think the way we might do it is like just have it check, like the flag gets set when the motion happens or is about to happen, and then the end stop checker checks the flag and then clears it at that point. And so it gets cleared by the end stop checking routine instead. That might work for the current situation that we have. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, we're getting all the interplanetary visitors. Good to see you all. Welcome to Earth. I'm working on code for Marlin Firmware, is what I do. It's my day job. And you can Google it. If you're not sure what it is, but I can give you a little lowdown. It is the most popular firmware for 3D printers in the whole world, so I'm told. And that's shifting to Clipper, but we still have the only firmware that runs everything on one board. And so there's always stuff to do, and in spite of the rumors of our death, we're constantly being invited to make new things, to fix things, to improve on what's there. And the new motion system that we've been working on for the last couple of years has been maturing in recent months and is just about ready for prime time. So I'm preparing the release, and in the meantime, I'm doing a little interim release of Marlin 2126, which is just a little patch up from the previous version. And we just finished doing all the builds of the binaries, so I'm going to check the log and see which ones failed. And as we do that, we can very quickly go see why they failed. And we'll fix them up. Well, that one was aborted, so that's clearly not it. That one actually looks like it succeeded. V2, oh, it's the V2. Oh, look, it did succeed at one point. So yeah, we can do things like build one. So right now I can say build example, right? And then we decide which example we're going to build. And we can say, let's do this one. Adam Lub Gantry. And if we want, we can give it an index. We can say no xfer, just in case. Allow no fail. Oh, we're going to export not 105, but 102. We don't have a 105 in this version of Marlin. And then I think the other thing was it was version 1. Index 1. Okay, I think that's it. And then we'll just put that at the end, actually. Index equals 1. Yeah, so yeah, I'm glad I got a chance to catch up with everyone and just make this little overview while I'm doing my building away here. I'm gonna go and get some lunch real soon, but I just thought it would be nice to catch up with you on Christmas Eve, and we'll keep it short and sweet. Right now it is about, check the time. How long have we been going? Not too long. Hour and 40 minutes. Okay. Check this build. A mini build would do more than one environment. So that one succeeded, actually. Okay, so that's not a fail. But anyway, let's amend this as all done. Boom. There may be some here where there's just a config.ini and nothing else. I have to check for that. Like, what's this one? Does that count as a build? So let's see. So what I would typically do is I would take this error log and I would go through all of these. And I would do a rebuild. So we'll take all these here. Boop. And we'll put them into the rebuild process. And so we're going to need everything up to and including config equals quote. And we'll just do it this way. Quote, and then index equals there. I think that does it. Okay, and I guess I'll skip this one since I already did that. and let's try them. We'll see what we got. So these are all the ones that failed. So we could simply go back and look for them. Ugh. I think what I'm gonna do is gonna clear that right out. There you go. You're clear. Boom. Done. Clear. Okay, now that that's clear, I'll just run my script. In downloads, rebuild. There we go. Ready? Go. Voila. So that's how we get through the builds. We accept that there are going to be fails and errors and just let them happen. Okay, that one's because it's too large. That's fine. That's one I can skip. That's also, yeah, I think all the ones that are too large will be fine. I can skip those because we don't necessarily need everything to be on 1280s. We do want to support your 2560s. And if you want to get on a 1280, come onto the Discord and get some help. We'll get someone on that. We have a lot of good people to help there. The Facebook is also very helpful. There's a couple of Facebook groups that'll do builds for you, like Nick's Firmware. And there's a lot of people who will help you there. So definitely come along. And I'll have 2126 out shortly. So anyway, good to see you.